Excuse me? What? What do you say? What program? The worst nightmares you know are often the metamorphosis of a fable. Fables people tell their kids to put them to sleep and perfect their moral education. The new conquerors, who we'll call the cyberneticians, do not compromise an organized party, which will have made our work here a lot easier, but rather as a fused constellation of agents, all driven, possessed, and blinded by the same fable. The cybernetic hypothesis is thus a political hypothesis, a new fable that after the Second World War has definitely supplanted the liberal hypothesis. Contrary to the latter, it proposes to conceive biological, physical, and social behaviors as something integrally programmed and reprogrammable. More precisely, it conceives of each individual behavior as something piloted, in the last analysis, by the need for the survival of a system that makes it possible, and which it must contribute to. It is a way of thinking about balance, born in a crisis context, whereas 1914 sanctioned the decomposition of the anthropological conditions for the verification of the liberal hypothesis. The emergency of Bloom and the bankruptcy, plain to see in flesh and bone in the trenches, of the idea of the individual and all the metaphysics of the subject. It is the end of hope and of all concrete utopias, forming like a bridge crossing over the state of waiting for, expecting nothing on anymore, of having nothing more to lose. And this is a way of reintroducing, through a particular sensibility, to the possibilities of lived situations, to their possibilities of collapse, to the extreme fragility of their organization, a serene relationship with the flight forward movement of cybernetic capitalism. In the twilight of nihilism, fear must become as extravagant as hope. Within the framework of the cybernetic hypothesis, panic is understood as a status change in the self-regulating system. For a cybernetician, any disorder can only come from their having a discrepancy between the preset behaviors and the real behaviors of the system's elements. A behavior that escapes control while remaining indifferent to the system is called noise, which consequently cannot be handled by a binary machine, reduced to a 0 or a 1. Such noises are the lines of flight, the wanderings of desires that have still not gone back into valorization circuit, the non-enrolled. Cybernetics is the simulation of the totality of the phenomena that exist into brain phenomena. By posing the mind as the alpha and omega of the world, cybernetics has guaranteed itself a place as the avant-garde of all avant-gardes, the one that they will now for all forever be running after. It effectively implements at the start the identity between life, thought, and language. This radical monism is based on an analogy between the notions of information and energy. Weiner introduced it by grafting onto his discourse the discourse of the 19th century, thermodynamics. The operation consisted in comparing the same effect of time on an energy system with the effect of time on an information system. A system, to the extent that is a system, is never pure and perfect. There is a degradation of its energy to the extent that it undergoes exchanges, in the same way as information degrades that is circulated around. This is what Clausius called entropy. Entropy, considered as a natural law, is the cybernetician's hell. It explains the decomposition of life, disequilibrium in economy, the dissolution of bonds, decadence. Initially, speculatively, cybernetics claimed that it had thus opened up a common ground on which it will be possible to carry out the unification of the natural and human sciences. What would end up being called the second cybernetics was the superior project of a vast experimentation on human societies, anthropotechnology. The cybernetician's mission is to fight the general entropy threatening living beings, machines, and societies. That is to create experimental conditions for a permanent revitalization, endlessly restoring the integrity of the whole. Important thing isn't that mankind is present, but it exists as a living support for technical ideas, says Raymond Royer, the humanist commentator. With the elaboration and development of cybernetics, the idea of the experimental sciences, already at the origins of political economy via Newtonian physics, will once again lend as a strong arm to capitalism. But cybernetics, on the other hand, sees itself as forced to recognize that a general regulation of human existence is still not achievable at the present time. This is why mankind still has a function provisionally within the universal domain of cybernetic science as a factor of disturbance.